There's a storm out there, folks. Yeah, it's been really stormy over the weekend. I've actually been really into the rain because I think we needed it. You guys remember the like dust bowl? It was almost like a dust. Well, I guess like a dust storm, right? On I-55 there in Springfield, killed some people, tragic, injured a lot of people, and I was saying to myself, I was like, we need some rain, so that way that kind of stuff doesn't happen where we have blowing dust. That's not something you see in the state of Illinois so much. So I'm glad that it's raining. I'm glad that it's raining, and there's storms scattered throughout today, scattered thunderstorms, just kind of like yesterday. Now there is also another storm I've got to talk about coming up here in about 10 minutes. Tucker Carlson has been ousted from Fox News. We know that late April, that's when he was ousted from Fox News, and there's been a relative calm before the storm. So there's been like Media Matters leaks. They leaked this stupid text message that really was nothing, and then they leaked, some videos of Tucker behind the scenes, which kind of made me just like him more. They tried to say he was a misogynist for saying something about he's got to ask his postmenopausal audience if he looks good or not. I thought that was funny. So most of it is just kind of leaks that make him, human and funny and an adult, right? We're all adults here and we have adult humor. So that was basically what they thought they had on him, and they were leaking that out. Now Fox News, they say they're not behind the leaks. They're talking about Dominion being behind the leaks, and they're saying that, hey, the stuff that we've got here is confidential, and you can't be leaking that out, blah, 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 blah. What's really interesting, though, is that we've got Tucker Carlson coming out now and saying that he's trying to get out of this contract that expires in 2025. Now, the top-rated cable host is getting ready to go to war with this embattled network, and I'm super excited to bring you the story here from Axios. But first, I want to talk about AOC. So this is what she tweets out there. She says, despite what Fox News wants you to believe, being afraid of an unarmed person is not a reason to kill them. We should never accept a society where such rationale becomes normal. She also tweets this out about Jordan Neely. She says, especially when powerful incentives exist in politics and media to keep people afraid of each other. So this is interesting. No one intended to kill Jordan Neely. You hysterical hack, AOC. Literally, no one is advocating for that. Nobody is advocating that you intentionally kill people for no reason. However, what she's missing here, an unarmed person, you don't know that, and you don't know what this person was capable of. All Jordan Neely knew, probably in that moment, was that there was some guy on the subway that was acting completely berserk and was threatening people. So there's new video footage now out there that shows Jordan Neely had him in the chokehold. He released him from this chokehold, and he was alive after releasing him from the chokehold. As it appears in the video, his leg was moving. He looked to be like moving. His chest was moving up and down in this video. He appeared to be alive after Jordan pulled himself off of him, subdued him with a chokehold. I don't think he really intentionally tried to kill the guy. I don't even know if he died from the chokehold. See, that's the thing. These people don't even have an autopsy. They don't even what if it was a drug overdose? Possible. The guy was homeless. But here's AOC just coming out saying that this person was unarmed. You don't know that. That there was no reason to kill him. You don't know that. There's things called justifiable homicide, right? Now, Penny is the Marine. Penny is his last name, Daniel Penny, is the Marine who put him in the chokehold. There were many other men with Penny who were restraining Neely until the police arrived. Now, AOC's rhetoric here is begging for a race war and more fiery but mostly peaceful protest. I think that's so funny. People are like, this is a mostly peaceful protest. What do you mean? I see the flames in the background. I just played for you the subway worker who's there in New York dealing with the protests, dealing with protesters jumping on top of train tracks. I just played for you. He thinks that there was a cop whose leg got broken. These are not peaceful protesters. These are people who are breaking the legs of officers and jumping on top of train tracks. So, yeah, this tweet was just amazing. And I think that that's the point. I think that she wants a race war. She wants these fiery, but mostly peaceful protests. She wants these because she is the same. It's funny that she says media and politicians. That's you, AOC. That's you. 309-451-9299. You can always be a part of the program. Now, I like to do this. I like to bring out some good news for you. I know starting out your Monday, right? You got to get back into work. For the last 11 years, this guy in Wichita, Kansas, known as Spencer B, has been running a lawn care company. So a fun little fact, my parents, they ran a lawn care company. We helped him out with it. My brother still kind of owns the lawn care company, and he does all of the jobs now. He's really accumulated quite a lot. It started out as and this is typically how lawn care companies go. You start out cutting a few of your friends' yards for a couple of 20s, and then all of a sudden you've got a client list that's 50 strong. But his company is called SB Mowing. Spencer B Mowing, right? SB Mowing, and has been thriving. So Spencer and his team maintained about 40 properties each week. So about a year ago, Spencer started to make it a point to do some good in the community. So if he sees a lawn in bad shape, he knocks on the homeowner's door and he offers to take care of the lawn for them for free. Now, that simple gesture of kindness has become a big deal thanks to the power of social media, obviously. Now, for example, Spencer shared a story about helping Mark, Edens is his name, who happened to be a veteran who served in the Army for 9 years. People who saw the video on Spencer's YouTube channel stepped up and donated. So after finishing the lawn, Spencer returned to surprise Mark with $10,000 cash. Spencer is able to take care of several lawns a week for free, although some are more difficult jobs that take several days to complete. So Spencer definitely motivated to continue his mission because he's able to restore dignity to those who are down on their luck. And he explains that it makes them feel good about themselves and about where they live. Yeah, that's always so tragic. I love working outside. This was the only weekend where I couldn't really work outside and do some yard work. I did a little bit, but not a whole lot because of all the rain. But yeah, that's always really sad is when somebody can't continue to do their lawn anymore. And I saw a lot of that growing up because we had the lawn care business, and it was mainly elderly people who couldn't keep up their lawn anymore. And that was always sad to see. But oh boy, the smiles on the faces when you can do somebody's yard for them. So I don't know, maybe do somebody's yard. If you've got an elderly neighbor who can't do it anymore, go over and do it for free for them, so they don't have to call a mowing company. 309-451-9299. I am live in studio. You can check me out on Facebook and on YouTube. Be sure to like, subscribe the channel, share this video out with your friends. Well, we're going to be back, and I've got to tell you about Axios and how they've got this story. And why does it matter, folks? Because it could reshape the conservative news world, and I'm so excited. I'll bring you the story here next. Hey, good morning, friends. Thanks so much for tuning into the live stream. I saw this, and here's just a little Illinois story. So a group of Democrat senators, and I know you can guess which one. Dick, of course, he's there. Dick is there, and he's the majority whip, guys. And he said in a letter to Joe Biden this past Friday that the United States is facing a major workforce shortage. in multiple industries, and economists believe that 2 years of lost immigration amid the COVID 19 pandemic is responsible for half of the workers who are missing from the labor force. I don't think that's the reason why. What do you think the reason why, when you go into places, there's nobody there? I was in a Dollar General, I'm not kidding you, off Rab Road, and I went in and nobody was there. Nobody was there to check me out. And eventually I just had to leave because I gathered all of my stuff at the Dollar General and I was like waiting for somebody to check me out. The self checkout wasn't working. Like the computer was totally down and it wasn't even on. And I was like, okay. And eventually I just had to leave. I put my stuff back and I left the Dollar General because there was nobody there. And you can see that, right? A lot of places they're running with one, maybe two employees. Um, I don't think it's the immigration thing. I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say I don't think it's the immigrants, the lack of immigrants that we've got here in this country. I think that it might be because we're paying people unemployment to stay at home, or people don't want the jobs that require you to go out and go to the office or go to a job site. They don't want those jobs. They want the jobs where you get to stay at home and do nothing. So, and there's plenty of jobs like that out there, folks. The day in the life of a Google employee or a Twitter employee or marketing or, public relations, all those types of jobs. It's kind of a job where you do nothing. And I think that that is where a lot of people are at. Maybe it's the marijuana. I've said that multiple times, being that there's multiple states now that have legalized marijuana. We saw an uptick during the COVID 19 pandemic of people purchasing marijuana, of dispensaries having to try to keep up with that demand. Um, and what that does is it unmotivates a lot of youth to get out and to be in the workforce. They might be in mommy and daddy's basement smoking a blunt. That might be where everybody's at. But um, Dick Durbin, the senators, the Democrat senators, they're saying that they want a non-citizens a sponsor. They want to sponsor a bill. It's a non-citizens where they are authorized to work. So they want to get non-citizens work permits in certain industries to expand the workforce and to end the shortage of workers. Um, I think this was the plan all along. With this whole border surge, getting these immigrants here, illegal immigrants, we have no idea who they are. We had just recently the guy who went in, an illegal alien, went into a home and he shot up an entire family execution style. Or Pesa is his name. So yeah, that's where I foresee this all happening, right? I mean, they want this, they want chaos, they want people in these jobs, and they want to give them these jobs. Why? Because they're voters. They can't get voters the correct way or the legal way, so they want to make voters out of non-citizens here in the United States. And how do you get them to vote for you? Give them jobs. But what they're failing to account for are the Orpezas, the people who are illegal and are dangerous and have no documentation, and we have no idea who they are. They might be felons, they might be um, people who have been deported multiple times. We have no idea who these people are, and we're just letting them in. And yeah, that's that they're not accounting for that. They think that they're playing like a almost a gambling game, right? If we can get enough citizens in here that are, orderly or that can vote, as long as they've got a pulse and they can vote, and we give them a job. It doesn't matter what kind of citizen they are. It doesn't matter how many convictions they have. It doesn't matter what they've done. If we can get them here in this country, and if we can get them to the box to vote for us, then we'll do it. Then we'll just let them all in, and there's got to be something that sticks to the wall where they vote for us. That's what I think is really going on here. All right, hold on. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299 or see me live in the studio on Facebook or on YouTube. We're live there. You can also catch us on Twitter. We also have Twitter. So be sure to follow all of our accounts. It really helps us, guys, and it helps us show that we've got a presence here in the community. And it's so important that your voice, Cities 92.9, is carried on throughout Bloomington Normal because they're trying to censor it. They're trying to silence your voice, and we're just trying to get the word out there and get these leftists to understand what's going on. And coming up in about 20 minutes, one thing that I don't think leftists quite understand is that this whole flooding of illegal immigrants at the border thing is going to wind up kicking them in the butt, because we see things like Orpeza, that one guy who went into a home and executed an entire family, and he was deported multiple times, yet he was here in the country. We have no idea who these people are. We have no idea how much fentanyl they're bringing in with them. And it's just a free-for-all. It's just a mess at the border, and it's going to get even worse because Title 42 is going to be lifted here. And I want to get into that here coming up in about 20 minutes. A group of Democrat senators, and you guessed it, Dick Durbin, right? Our very own Dick Durbin, Tammy Duckworth, all of them. They are urging now President Joe Biden to allow states to sponsor non-citizens for work authorization in certain industries to expand the workforce. Now, you've probably noticed it. You go into places of business and there's no employees there, especially since the COVID-19 pandemic. And they're thinking that the reason why is because there was no immigration, and because of Title 42, that's why we're seeing such a decline in labor force. That's why we're seeing maybe 2 employees at an establishment. I mean, I was just at Dollar General the other day. I go in, nobody's there, and I have to put all my stuff back because there's nobody there to check me out. They had a self-checkout thing, but the computer was down and there was no way for me to actually pay for my goods. So I had to go put everything back, and I went to a different store. But that's where we're at here in the United States. You can't even go into the store and be served and have a clerk check you out. That's where we're at here in the United States. And I don't think that it's immigration. I don't think that immigration, because think about that. Immigration, they weren't able to work before COVID-19 unless they had some sort of work for a green card or a visa or work visa or something like that. They weren't able to work before the COVID-19 pandemic. Now what they're trying to do is get them to work with work authorization. They want to sponsor non-citizens in certain states. And the state of Illinois will be doing this because Dick Durbin has signed this letter to Joe Biden that was sent out on Friday. But they want the immigrants to work now, but they weren't working before. They had the work visas. So I don't understand what the difference is between illegal immigration, prior to COVID-19 and now. All I know is that we've got a flood of immigrants now, and we have no idea who they are, and they could be dangerous people like Orpeza, people who shoot entire families, and that's dangerous. So I'm going to get into this story because Title 42 is going to be rolled back, and that means a lot of danger for us here in America, and especially here in Illinois, being that we've got immigrants being shipped to Chicago, and Greg Abbott has been shipping them to Lori Lightfoot. Lori Lightfoot says she doesn't have the space or the resources to take care of them. So this is just going to be a total mess. But before I get into all of that, I was telling you about Tucker Carlson and how he was ousted from Fox News late April, and how there's been a relative calm before the storm. So yes, we've seen some leaking to Media Matters. We've seen this text message from Tucker Carlson that was really like nothing. They said that it made him look racist. I don't think so, because in that same text message, he kind of says, I don't like the person that I'm becoming. I don't like that I saw this. I don't, white people don't fight that way. He was watching uh, a group of Trumpsters go after this Antifa fellow. And he was saying that, this wasn't a white fighting style. And then in that same text message, he apologizes uh, for his beliefs and what he was seeing and how he was taking it. And he said that he didn't like the person that he become. We've all seen the text message, but relatively calm. But now I see a storm on the horizon. That's the thing. I think this top-rated cable host is getting ready to go to war with an embattled network. Now, according to Axios, this is just in, is seeking to get out of his contract. That's what Tucker Carlson is doing, which locks him through 2025. And he wants to build his his own media empire. And to accomplish that, he's going to make the lives of Fox News executives absolutely miserable. So I wouldn't be shocked if there's some sort of Tucker Carlson leaks that come out. So Tucker Carlson could be preparing to unleash allies to attack Fox News in efforts to bully the network into letting him work for or start a right-wing rival. So that he might be creating leaks of his own, and the way he's going to go about it is to give those details to other right-wing media friends on right-wing media. So here we have it. Sources close to Tucker Carlson are telling Axios this. Brian Friedman, who is the high-powered Hollywood lawyer that Carlson retained for the contract dispute, and he tells Axios, so this is Tucker Carlson's lawyer. He says this. He says the idea that anyone is going to silence Tucker and prevent him from speaking to his audience is absolutely preposterous. So why does this matter? The reason why this matters is because this could reshape the conservative news world. Fox News could literally go, maybe not obsolete, but I mean, in comparison to what Tucker Carlson will create, his media empire, they are going to be irrelevant. So Fox News, the ratings have already took like a nosedive since Tucker Carlson hasn't been there. And, what they were trying to do, they were trying to pay him in this contract for 2025 because that's when his contract is up. So I think they're continuing to pay Tucker Carlson for his contract, but they pulled his show off of the air. So essentially he's getting paid to do nothing. And now the question needs to be, why would they'd rather pay the guy and have him off air instead of have him on air and pay him for what he's doing. Ask yourself, why would they be doing that? Axios has learned Carlson is busy plotting a media empire of his own, but he needs Fox to let him out of the contract, which expires January 2025. And of course, folks, he needs to start this media empire Tucker Carlson does before the presidential election in 2024. If the elites at Fox News thought Carlson was going to go quietly, I think they miscalculated a bit here, folks, because that's what I really take from all of this. I think that they miscalculated how strong Tucker Carlson's audience is. It's 3 million strong. Did no one speak about this in meetings? That certainly took place prior to Carlson being ousted and fired from his show. And, did anybody do a risk analysis? Did those behind the decision not pause for even a moment to consider how all of this would play out? Did they really think they could just boot off the most popular, influential conservative commentator in recent history with no face no backlash, no consequences for that? Think about how bad this has gone for Fox News. First, they've lost their biggest draw, which in and of itself is a major flub. They lost their biggest draw, so a big audience base. Losing Tucker Carlson also spilled over into the rest of the primetime lineup with ratings dramatically across the board going down. The ratings are going down. And you've got overall damage to Fox News brand to deal with as conservatives thumb their noses at the network, right? I know my brother, he said, I'm done. I went over to Newsmax, and he said that he found a new conservative anchor that he really likes. And to make matters worse, Carlson is now going to set the place on fire in an attempt to gain his autonomy, to try to gain his own right to speak. So these contracts, I hope that he gets out of it. I really do. Fox News is destroyed, has destroyed itself. And they tried to say, like, oh, we fired him because of this mundane text message in which he made a extremely mild racial comment about how white men fight, and he completely reversed it in the same text. Like, he apologized for it in the same text. So I don't know if that was the reason why they ousted him. There's all kinds of things out there that Rupert Murdoch and his fiance, right? There was that whole thing where his fiance liked Tucker Carlson and thought he was a messenger of God and had some sort of prophetic piece about him. And the Rupert Murdoch did not like that his fiance liked Tucker Carlson so much. And he is not so bold about his faith, and Tucker Carlson was. And shortly after a dinner party that they all had together where Tucker Carlson brought out the Bible, they're saying that, Rupert Murdoch didn't like that. And then he and the fiance actually split. And, shortly after that, Tucker Carlson was nixed. So I don't know. Maybe it was that. I don't know. There's a lot of different things out there right now. But I think Rupert Murdoch should think about firing himself, because they are just totally not acting smart with this whole Tucker Carlson thing. 309-451-9299. I got to take a break, but we'll be back, and I want to talk about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Now he's come out and made some very strong allegations about the 1963 assassination of his uncle, JFK. He's just flat out accusing the CIA of being behind this world-altering murder. That's where RFK Jr. is at right now, and I want to talk about it next. Here's my thing, Colson. Yes, illegal immigration and illegal aliens who are not documented for are not good for this country. Why? Well, let's just point to one of hundreds of cases where we have illegal aliens who have previous convictions, i.e., or previous deportations. Um, we have that Orpeza guy, and I'm sure you've heard the story, Colson, where he went in and he killed an entire family, and he did this via execution style. They had no idea who he was. They had no documentation on him. It was a manhunt that lasted for 4 days. And when we have illegal immigration like that, there's several people out there in the world that are like that and who will hurt people. And if you don't have documentation, then you cannot stay. You can't stay, because there's no way for us to hold you accountable when you are a legal citizen. There is a understanding of who you are, and if you just are here, and we don't know who you are, and you go commit crimes, it's hard to find you, believe it or not. So that was the whole reason why Orpeza had a 4-day manhunt. There was nothing that they had on the guy, other than the fact that he was deported for deported 5 times. 309-451-9299. We are going to get into some immigration here, because here here are Texas's three recent mass murderers. Okay, there was and I feel like I'm going to butcher this. Mauricio Garcia. That was that it took place over the weekend. He was a mass shooter. Then we also have the Orpeza, who was hiding out in the the bait or in the closet underneath some laundry after he executed an entire family. And there's just so many more so much white supremacy happening here. Not it's so hard to fathom all of this white supremacy. No. Texas has really been taking a beating from these people. And in completely unrelated news, I guess, Joe Biden is getting rid of Title 42 this Thursday, and over 700,000 illegals are expected to rush the border. So that's where I want to go next here in the 7 o'clock hour. 309-451-9299. The left is losing the Jordan Neely debate. Their hysterical and sinister overreactions have lost their potency. Conservatives are finally learning not to play along. Alvin Bragg might still try to imprison this Good Samaritan, but he's already lost in the court of public opinion because people are starting to see the videos come out. There's been new video that has come out about Jordan Neely, and I want to get into that here coming up in the 7 o'clock hour. It's Monday morning, 6:58. You can text in at 309-451-9299. Okay, folks. Coming up in just a little bit, we will be talking about the immigration problems that we're seeing. Title 42, there's an expected 700,000 illegal immigrants to rush the border on Thursday when that Title 42 is lifted. Now, we do know that the World Health Organization has come out and said that COVID-19 is no longer a global health pandemic, and this is the reason why Title 42 is being lifted. Um, and this is going to be bad. I've got some numbers here for you that are just going to completely shock you when it comes to fentanyl, when it comes to how many people have been uh, coming over this border. Hold on, I'll just pull up the numbers now, and then we'll get into it here coming up in just a little bit. The Title 42. I pulled these numbers and it was just, you will not believe it. Also, did you guys see that story about Lauren Heike? She escaped her attacker, and he was already a convict. He was convicted felon, and he was out there when she was hiking, and she was stabbed 15 times in the back and in the chest, and she eventually died from her injuries, but not before trying to flee her attacker. This is a sad story. His name is Zion Teasley, and he was charged with her murder. This happened in Arizona. She was killed after hiking a trail, and she was stabbed 15 times. She managed to fight off her attacker and run away, but she collapsed and died. Really sad story. And here's the thing: these people just should be locked up. He was a convicted felon. He shouldn't have been. He shouldn't have been out. He shouldn't have been out. Bottom line. So that was Lauren Heike. She escaped her attacker after being stabbed 15 times. That just goes to show you how badly she wanted to live. And she didn't, because this guy was out on the loose. He was already a previously convicted felon. And, I am all for the El Salvador president, and that he says, lock them up, keep them locked up, throw away the key. We should have mass prisons, and we should be keeping these people here in prison. So then there's this Title 42. This is rolling back, and it's going to be something else. It's definitely going to overwhelm the border. Make no mistake about that. Okay, let's look for it here. Okay. So, Title 42, formally enacted by President Donald Trump during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is not something new either. Title 42 was enacted like 8 decades ago as part of the Public Health Service Act in 1944. Mm-mm-mm. So here we go. At least 10,000 immigrants right now on the border waiting to get in after that Title 42 expires on Thursday this week. So this is going to be completely insane. And I saw somebody tweet out about the fentanyl deaths and what they're going to be bringing over the border. And it's just insane what they've gotten so far. And this is what they've gotten so far. This isn't even... Yeah, this human tsunami is going to be wild. What have we got here? We've got... I want to get these fentanyl overdoses, this number to you, before I get into the story. Here we go. So they have seized, and this is what they have so far. This is not accounting for what is already out there, or what's out there. This is 138 pounds of fentanyl. So that's just 1 week of what these Border Patrol apprehensions, in just 1 week, what they've gotten: 138 pounds of fentanyl. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for joining me. Now, let's talk about the tsunami that is going to, this human tsunami that's going to shake the United States after Title 42 expires here Thursday. We will be getting into that. But first, I wanted to read it from Bill Malugin. He talks about these apprehensions. In 1 week, what the Border Patrol has apprehended at the border. These are some of the highest weekly totals I have ever seen, and Title 42 hasn't even dropped yet. So that's dropping on Thursday, and these are stunning numbers. The Border Patrol apprehensions. Let me just read through what the Border Patrol in just 1 week here recently in these apprehensions. Let's dig into it. 2 agents were assaulted in just 1 week. Over 54,000 apprehensions. Approximately, these are people who have gotten away. 20,000, about 20,000 people who have approximate gotaways. And then we have money that's been seized. It was $714,000 seized. Then we have 101 pounds of cocaine that was apprehended just in 1 week. And then we have 1,050 pounds of marijuana that has been apprehended. That's a lot. We've got 2,721 pounds of meth. Then we've got 138 pounds of fentanyl. Then we have 16 firearms that were being taken over the border here, 6 sex offenders, and 7 gang members. So this is the kind of stuff that's coming over when these people come over, and we don't account for them. We don't stop. We don't check them. We don't make sure that they are entering the country legally with legal substances, right? 138 pounds of fentanyl. And just mind you, the tip of your pencil, right? If you've got a pencil on you handy, the tip of it, just the tiny little tip of it, is enough to kill you. That's enough to kill you. That's the amount that George Floyd had in his system, and that's what caused him to die. That's how much fentanyl was in his system. It doesn't take much. So 138 pounds of fentanyl could kill thousands of young men and women in this country. And that's what's being drug over the border right now as we speak. And it's going to get worse because on Thursday, this rolling back of Title 42 hasn't even dropped yet. And it's going to drop on Thursday. And we're looking at numbers, and I'm seeing 700,000 people are expected to flood the border on that Thursday. So be prepared for that. 309-451-9299. You can always text in and be a part of the show. Now, real quick, I did want to get into this before I get into the border. There was an interview that presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. made, and he made some really strong allegations in this interview. And this is wild about the 1963 assassination of his uncle, JFK. Now, he flat out is accusing the Central Intelligence Agency of being behind this world-altering murder, and it's not the first time that he's indicated this belief, but his comments are some of the most categorical statements that he's made on the subject. So he's come out with very strong allegations. Strong allegations means substantial evidence, and I think he's got it. So in the interview, quote, this is what he has to say: "There is overwhelming evidence that the CIA was involved in his murder," meaning JFK's murder. "I think it's beyond a reason of doubt at this point. The evidence is overwhelming that the CIA was involved in the murder and in the cover-up." So that's what he says here in this interview. Now, JFK was president on November 22nd of 1963. This is when he was fatally shot while riding in a motorcade in Dallas, Texas. The official position after the Warren Commission investigation was conducted, they came to the conclusion that a lone gunman, Lee Harvey Oswald, acted alone and that there was no evidence of a broader conspiracy. However, many people are unsatisfied by that explanation. So through the years, there's been countless theories that have floated out there. Books have been written about this. Movies have been made speculating on the variety of plots, possible plots by Russia, the mafia, Cuba, others, right? So RFK, here he is on a talking head like show on this on Sunday. It was like a podcast type thing. It's called All In. And let's take a listen here. Here we go.
You believe they murdered or were involved in the murder of your uncle? What have you come to personally?
The CIA, yes, they were definitely involved in the murder and the 60-year cover-up. They're still not releasing the papers that legally they have to release. But I don't think there's any doubt if you look at this huge, monumental mountain of evidence and confessions, and, so many people who have confessed to their involvement. And for anybody who has doubts about that, I would recommend a book by Jim Douglas called The Unspeakable, because I think he's done a better job than anybody else at kind of assembling and distilling all of the millions and millions of documents that have been released over the past 50 years. And these revelations are released incrementally, and so nobody really takes notice of them. But when you put them all together, the story is very clear.
There you go. So this was, I haven't quite seen anybody come out as strongly and made these types of allegations. Now, there's interest in this subject of the assassination, and this was rekindled, obviously, because in December we got the National Archives to release thousands of documents. Now, there's even more documents that haven't been released yet, and we need those, but they've been sealed for 6 decades, and now it's finally starting to come out about JFK's death. So at the height of the Cold War, and this is stuff that I'm researching, folks, so maybe this is, review in review, but at the height of the Cold War, JFK, he risked committing the greatest crime in human history, and that was starting a nuclear war. Now, horrified by the idea of nuclear annihilation, John F. Kennedy, he eventually and gradually turned away from his long-held Cold Warrior beliefs and he started to turn towards policy of lasting peace. Is this starting to sound familiar? But the military and the intelligence agencies in the United States, who were committed to winning the Cold War at any cost, didn't like Kennedy's change of heart. And they thought that this was a direct threat to their power and influence. So once these dark, unspeakable forces... So I recommend the book, too. I haven't read it. I just purchased it on my way in to work today. The unspeakable forces recognized that Kennedy's interests were in direct opposition of their own. They tagged him as a dangerous traitor, and then they started to plot his assassination, and they orchestrated a subsequent cover-up. That's the whole thing here. Now, the reason why I bring this up today, because I don't want to fuel JFK assassination conspiracy theories if they aren't true, but you've got a nephew coming out and saying that there's substantial evidence. There's books out there, and now we've got the National Archives leaking out documents that suggest that maybe it's not a lone gunman who assassinated JFK. Maybe there were more people involved. The reason why I bring this up today is because after Tucker Carlson, and I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but it's interesting, right? Before his departure, Tucker Carlson from Fox News, he had come out multiple times and said that he was in contact with a source who had access to still hidden documents that show that the CIA had some sort of involvement in the murder. Now, some paint RFK Jr. as a wacko, and I don't think that he's a good fit for president or anything like that. However, he's smart, and he does have, I think it's like some sort of spastic problem where he can't speak clearly. And his own siblings have distanced himself because of his stance on vaccines. And I don't even really think that he's extreme in that way. I don't think that he's anti-vaccine. I think that he's become more so, being that there is this COVID-19 vaccine. But it's very clear that he's smart and he does his research. And I've read his book multiple times, and I love the book. But one thing is clear. The official conclusion of the government that a lone gunman killed the president, JFK, is still not believed by a vast number of citizens in this country. And you can't ignore that. So let's get into another story I want to get to. Jordan Neely. That's all the talk today, because there's this new video that's out there, and I wish I could show you the video. If you're watching online, you can definitely see the video. But he's come out there's this new video, and this has elicited very strong emotions from all sides. The homeless man who was placed into the submission hold by an ex-Marine after allegedly aggressively threatening passengers on this New York subway. And he was pronounced later dead after being transported to a nearby hospital. So here's the thing. There was a submission hold, there was a chokehold, but then they put him in sort of a position in this new video you can see where he didn't appear to be dead. His chest is moving, his legs are moving after being held in that chokehold. And what this Marine did, he put him in a position where he will get the most amount of air to regain consciousness. So it doesn't look like he intended to murder him in this new video that has come out. But Democrats, including AOC, have used this situation to stir up unrest. And believe me, there's a lot of protests out there People are jumping on top of train tracks. People are possibly breaking the legs of officers. We heard from a subway worker that he thinks that an officer broke his leg. And as they were carrying him out on a gurney, you could hear a protester in the background of one of these videos scream out, "I hope you die." Like, this is getting insane because you have people like AOC suggesting that Jordan Neely was lynched. He was not lynched. There were people that were black that were holding him down. Thankfully, to this point, their rhetoric hasn't added up to much, except this one protest that has turned really, really ugly. A couple hundred people. And hopefully it doesn't go nationwide, but I have a feeling that it will. Meanwhile, on the other side, you've got Republicans who are largely taking the side of this Marine who held him. He's a former serviceman. His name is Daniel Penny. And they've been asserting that he is trying to protect people on this train. And in this new video, you can see, and this provides further context, you can see witnesses, people who are walking by Daniel Penny and thanking him for subduing Jordan Neely. I'm not kidding you. So there is a legal standard that has to be met in order to call this justifiable homicide. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but a lot of the arguments from those calling this murder have centered on the theory that Penny meant to kill Neely and that this was an act of racist violence. But the video shows several things that complicate that narrative and complicate that narrative very greatly, I might add. First, you can see in this new video, Daniel Penny, the Marine, releasing the submission hold, and then Neely was placed in what's called a recovery position. And maybe our veterans can speak to this and know what I'm talking about, but this is done after you put somebody in a chokehold, and it's done so you can fully open up the airway, typically to allow regaining of consciousness. And this heavily suggests that there was not an intent to harm Neely by Penny. There was no intention there of harming him. So he puts him in a recovery position. Secondly, you can see Neely's chest still moving after the chokehold. His leg even appears to move in the video at multiple points, which suggests that Daniel Penny let him go with the expectation that he was subdued, but not mortally wounded. So he could have been even alive. Was he still breathing when the paramedics got there? Jordan Neely probably was still alive. According to this video, it looks like he was moving. Thirdly, you can hear passengers thanking Daniel Penny for engaging Neely. That suggests people on the train did really actually feel like they were in a violent situation and that their lives were at stake. Whether their feelings were justified or not is another matter, but it again speaks to Daniel Penny's state of mind and the information he was working with at that time to put the guy in a chokehold. What exactly did Jordan Neely say prior to the altercation? Did he aggressively approach any of the passengers? These are all details that witnesses are going to have to fill in. And of course, none of this means Penny won't be charged with a crime because we've got Alvin Bragg taking on the case. We know that. Self-defense laws vary from state to state, but if the evidence doesn't support the idea that Neely represented a clear and present threat to those around him, a grand jury might still vote to indict him. So I don't know. If the evidence doesn't suggest that he was a clear and present danger, and I don't know, or clear and present threat, I don't know if the grand jury will indict him. I indict Daniel Penny. We'll have to see. 309-451-9299. I've got to take a break, but coming up in just a little bit, the WAPO is out there this morning. And surely you've heard this story about, I think I'm going to butcher his name. It's Mauricio Garcia, and you've heard here at the top of the hour, he was the gunman. And the WAPO is deliberately leaving his name and ethnicity out in this tweet, and they're pushing the idea that he's a white supremacist. Guy is Hispanic, and he killed people in Allen, Texas. I'm going to get to this story here coming up in just a little bit. The WAPO. You got to be kidding me with this one, folks. 309-451-9299. This is the Morning Buzz. And it's storming out there. I just took a little step outside and it is windy. There's going to be some rain on and off, some storms on and off today. So be safe out there. Now, I will say this. I think we need the rain. I think we need the rain because of what happened in Springfield. You saw that pile up on I-55. There was a dust storm, and those typically happen when the weather gets really, really dry and that dust starts to flare up. So I am glad that we've got some rain. And plus, I'm very excited about my lilac bush that I just planted over the weekend. So it's going to flourish and it's going to get huge. Those things get big. So we have to transplant it now because I think that it's going to get too big where it's at. It's too close to the house. So we got to move that lilac bush. But today I want to talk about what's going on in the Washington Post because this is of great concern. There is social media being pushed out there and they're not being honest about this Allen, Texas gunman. And they purposely excluded his name. And we know his name is Marcio Garcia. And the WAPO deliberately left out his name and ethnicity out of this tweet. And then they pushed the idea that this was a white supremacist. And here's the thing, folks. We don't know what this guy's beliefs or ideology is at this point. All we know is that he killed a lot of people in Dallas. And this was the mall shooting. And, I mean, this is just so tragic. We've got this mall shooting where I think let's look at the total here. 8 mass shooting. 8 people are left dead and several others injured. And this was in a mall in Texas. And here we have the Washington Post. And this is what they say in their tweet. The gunman who opened fired on an outlet mall in a Dallas suburb Saturday, killing at least 8 people, was a man in his early 30s who also may have been a white supremacist or a neo-Nazi and held these beliefs. This is what people familiar to the investigation said on Sunday. Oh, come on. Also from the WAPO, this is in their story. They say authorities have not released a motive. Okay, so there you have people saying the authorities haven't released a motive yet, but there was a patch on his chest, and I guess it says RWDS, and they're saying the WAPO they're saying that this is a patch that says right-wing death squad. And this is all according to people familiar with the investigation. Give me a break. The phrase is popular among right-wing extremists, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists, they said. In addition to the weapons found on his bodies, investigators found another 5 guns inside his car nearby. So they're, of course, going after the gun. They say AR-15 style, right? They're going after the gun, not the person. And they're trying to paint him as some sort of right-wing extremist. But here's the thing. RWDS, the patch that he had on his chest, it stands for a lot of things. And there haven't been authorities that have come out and released the motive. They're saying people familiar with the investigation. Well, who? Who are you talking about? What people are familiar with the investigation? You've got to take that stuff with a grain of salt, folks. Plus, not to mention, he was Hispanic, and he has a lot of tattoos that look kind of gang-related. And, you know, I'm not going to come out here and say that, yeah, he's in a Mexican gang. To be fair, the gang tattoos haven't been verified at this time, and I'm not going to pull a WAPO and say that he was in a Mexican gang or that he's a white supremacist if we don't know that information, right? I could say sources familiar to the matter say that the Mexican gang tattoos mean he's in the MS-13, right? No, I'm not going to come out and say that. And the WAPO doing this is just grossly irresponsible. And, you know, you shouldn't run with that. I don't know what their sources are, but I think it's hilarious. We've got them coming out here and saying that he's a white supremacist, but all we really know about him is that he's Hispanic. That's it. We don't know anything else about him. The authorities haven't come out and said what the motive here was. It's tragic. And there's people who were made victims, families who lost their daughters, lost their sons, lost their brothers, sisters. And there's actual victims here. And you've got the Washington Post speculating that this guy's a white supremacist and he's Hispanic. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, folks. We have to take a break. On the other side, I do want to talk with Scott Robbins for Scott's Takes. happens about 7:35 every morning, but they're going to say AR-15 style weapons. They're going to say all of this, and, they're going to try to push out this anti-gun narrative. They do this with every mass shooting. You know it. But I want to point out another story that happened over the weekend. A Hispanic man in custody after driving a car into a crowd near a migrant facility, killing 8 people and injuring 11. Now, I have no idea about the immigration status of Marcio Garcia, the guy who killed 8 people in that Dallas mall. I have no idea about the immigration status of this Hispanic man who drove into a crowd of people. However, I know that it doesn't line up with the whole white people are gunning down people with AR-15s narrative that the leftist media likes to push out there. I'm just saying. 309-451-9299. I'll be back. The storms have been wild.
Whoa, man.
Not as wild as what I think Joe Biden. I mean, there's some wild news. I think there's a storm a-coming with Joe Biden and this announcement of bombshell news.
Yeah,
Wednesdays
you and I were.
is gonna be a big day, I guess. Scott Robbins, right over there. This is.
Hi. I'm the disembodied head right now that you hear. I got this nasty cold. It's about gone now. I had it Saturday. It was really bad, really rough. I hate getting ill on a weekend. You know, if you're going to get ill, miss work. Jeez,
Yeah,
man.
I know. If you're
I mean,
gonna get ill,
it's the least we can do, right? I hate it when you were a kid, when you were sick on the weekend, and you were better by Monday. Golly. So anyway, here's the deal. So yeah, it was crazy storm time. You and I both have cats, so my cats are similar to your cats, I guess, because they hate the thunderstorms.
Yeah.
My male cat in particular, which you've met, but he cowers behind. He goes into the bathroom, gets behind the door, and just sits there and is just inconsolable. He won't move. He won't move until the storm is like gone.
But you've got another cat, and that's my problem. Is my cat comes to me and wants me to console him, and there's nothing I really can do except pet him and try to like relax him a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think if he had a friend, Scott, here's the thing. I think I need another cat.
Well, I do too. I'll tell you why. I was told by many people in the animal adoption business that cats do much better in pairs. Now, in my case, both my cats were kittens, not brother sister, but they were adopted essentially at the same time. But they were from different moms and dads. But anyway, they've grown up together, so they'll fight occasionally, but they're like brother sister. But they love each other. And my other cat, my female cat, went and consoled my male cat on Saturday night. She just laid down with him behind the door, although she's not afraid. So anyway, I thought it was a cool moment, and I guess you had to be there. It's sort of an animal love thing, right? Yeah. So that was my Saturday anyway. So I'm watching this thing develop, this Joe Biden thing develop, and I think the frustrating thing for most conservatives is what's taking so long, right? What do we need to know? What we already know certainly seems enough to go after these guys, the Biden crime family, including his knucklehead son, Hunter, Joe, his brother, his idiot brother, and all these people that were involved in all this, right? This Ukrainian money and Chinese money and the influence that was being peddled by his dopey son because he has no marketable skill, apparently, other than being a Biden.
Oh, come on. I really like his artwork, Scott.
Yeah, please.
Love the art.
This guy's getting like 25 grand a pop for this stuff or whatever, like he's a real artist. So at any rate, it looks like the boom's finally going to get dropped. And James Comer said something very interesting to Maria Bartoloma and about coming this Wednesday. And I thought, well, I had never heard this before. This is interesting. So all eyes on Wednesday, but here's what he had to say.
My message to the Department of Justice is very loud and clear. Do not indict Hunter Biden before Wednesday when you have the opportunity to see the evidence that the House Oversight Committee will produce with respect to the web of LLCs, with respect to the number of adversarial countries that this family influence peddled in. This is not just about the president's son. This is about the entire Biden family, including the president of the United States. So we believe there are a whole lot of accounts that the IRS and the DOJ don't know about because we don't believe they've done a whole lot of digging in this. And we have. We've spent the past 100 days poring over bank documents. I've used subpoena power to get these bank documents. We've been meeting with former associates of the Bidens in their different influence peddling schemes. We've been meeting with whistleblowers. We know exactly what this family was doing. And by all accounts from the media reports that we're getting, what they're looking at charging Hunter Biden on is a slap on the wrist. It's a drop in the bucket. So Wednesday will be a very big day for the American people in getting the facts presented to them so that they can know the truth. And then the Department of Justice can finally do what they should have done years ago.
What?
Wow, man. Yeah. Again, I'm leery with this stuff because of the whole election fraud thing with the Kraken and Rudy Giuliani and all that nonsense. Mm-hmm. So this makes me a little skeptical. However, it's James Comer and it's Chuck Grassley. And I don't think these guys come forward unless they've got something major. And we're going to find out about it. So that'll be coming up.
Wednesday.
Yeah, I may want. Do we have time? We're not going to have time to run both stories today, are we? The ones I have next. Okay, let's get to Alejandro Mayorkas, America's #1 liar. He was. I'm not kidding, and that's something, man. When you determine someone is the #1 liar in America from the Biden administration, that's something. This guy lies every single time he opens his mouth. He's pretending there's no crisis at the border. The border's closed. These are two things he said. We know these things are false. We've got eyes. We've seen it. It's amazing to me that this lies are just continuing to be perpetrated by this guy. But anyway, he was asked about the single men, the Venezuelans, who are coming into this country after saying they were turned away. And a reporter asked a real reporter, journalist question. I know you journalists aren't used to this because you're not shilling for this administration. But this time, it's a whole different story. Anyway, here we go.
Talking about the pathways and the plans that are in place, obviously, for majority Venezuelan migrants that was expanded to Haitian, Cuban, and Nicaraguan migrants. Why isn't that policy being enforced right now? Many of the migrants I'm meeting along the streets of Brownsville are swimming in between the ports of entry. As you have mentioned, if that happens, they're supposed to be returned. They're not being returned, and they're single adults without family here. Why is that happening?
So I think you are actually mistaken, because the parole process for Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans that we first announced and implemented on January 5th is underway and continues to be underway. And we continue, if I may, it does. And if I may, we continue to parole individuals of those 4 nationalities when they qualify under the program that we established and announced. And that requires a sponsor here in the United States to ensure that those individuals have financial.
He's lying. He's absolutely 100% lying. The thing is, we know he's lying. Everyone knows he's lying. That reporter knew he was lying. She's been on the ground talking to these guys. Like, no, we didn't. Nobody stopped us. We just rolled in. A reporter right there on the scene, a place that Mayorkas probably has never been, or anybody from this administration has ever been, while they're telling us that the border's closed and that they've got these policies in place, and they've been in place, and they're working. Then they pull some number out of their fannies to see, this is what's working. And, of course, that, too, is always questionable. All right, I want to wrap up with a little fun today. Okay, let's have some fun. I don't know who this woman is.
I don't know.
I'm not sure. This was sent to me by one of our listeners, and I'm not 100% sure who this is, but I think she's done this before. She's does spot on impersonations of Kamala Harris. Okay.
She's from the Elsa.
I can't believe I just said it like that.
Elsa Kurt show, Scott.
Yeah, and I don't know who that is. I'm unfamiliar with that.
Yeah.
She doesn't know who I am either, I'm sure. But I always quite say that when somebody says, I've never heard of you, I will always say, I've never heard of you either. So that way it works out. But at any rate, this is, I mean, there's a thing you do, Kat, when you imitate Kamala Harris that she also does.
Okay.
Right, exactly, that thing. And you'll hear it a couple of times here. But I'll let her set up the situation. She does it better than I do. Anyway, this is the best Kamala Harris impersonation you'll hear all day. Here we go.
Wondering what it would sound like to go on a job interview and talk like the vice president. The things that make me qualified for the job are the things that I have done in my past and the things that I continue to do today, okay? And these are skills that I have acquired by gaining skills to do the job and be qualified.
Do you have any idea what you're interviewing for?
Okay, well, full stop, okay? I don't even know what the job is. I was just wondering.
That's really good.
That is
really
good.
And it's spot on too. That's what makes it good. If you do impersonations of somebody and you hit it spot on like that, that's beautiful.
It's hard to do the cackle. I don't think I could.
You, no,
I
but
don't
you've
think I
got
can
you
do
you
it.
you a little, with a little work. I think you're onto it big time. I just because you've got the cadence correct,
Yes, yes.
and
the
it's the obscureness of what. And again, if you go back and you listen to what the context of what was said, it doesn't make any sense. It's just wordy nonsense that's supposed to sound really smart,
what has been,
but doesn't.
and what
Yeah.
will always be.
Right, like it's some grand statement you're making, right? All right, have a good day, Kat.
See you later, Scott Robbins.
Catch up with you later. All
Catch
right,
up
see
with
ya.
you later. Scott Robbins will be on Cities 92.9 a little bit later. It's going to be at 8 o'clock, folks. 8 p.m. is Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins. We've got an amazing lineup. Going to be back on the other side. Did you guys see? It wasn't a gun that killed people. It was a car that killed people. A Hispanic man drove his car into a crowd of people and killed a bunch of people. So sad. I'll be back with that story next. Hello, folks. Thanks so much for joining me on the live stream. Let's read some of your comments here. How much of liberal outrage is paid for? Rush showed that a small number of people could appear like a movement online. Yes. So that's one thing that's happening in New York City right now. It's probably less than a couple of hundred people, but it feels like they're nationwide protests because of how trending the protests for Jordan Neely have become. So Jordan Neely is the guy, the homeless man who appeared to be going berserk on the subway, threatening people, saying that he didn't want to live anymore, saying that he didn't care if he was going to go to jail, took off his jacket, it was a black jacket, and he threw it down on the ground, started yelling, going crazy on the subway. Then all of a sudden, a guy, his name's Daniel Penny, and he's an a Marine, a veteran, and he puts him in I think it's a sleep hold. I don't think it was really a chokehold. I could see what he was doing, and um, I'm not an expert in that, but it looked like he was putting him in some sort of hold to try to subdue him so that way he wouldn't hurt people on the subway. And now we've got new video footage coming out with that story where it looks as if uh, Jordan Neely is the guy, the homeless man who appeared to be going berserk on the subway, threatening people, saying that he didn't want to live anymore, saying that he didn't care if he was going to go to jail, took off his jacket, started yelling, going crazy on the subway. Then all of a sudden, a guy, his name's Daniel Penny, and he puts him in he was alive, Jordan Neely, after he was put in that hold, and then they put him in a recovery position where he would be allowed to regain consciousness and get the maximum amount of airflow to his body. So a sleeper hold is something that cuts off blood to your brain and it takes out your consciousness. And if done effectively, it won't kill you. So there's new video footage that might suggest that he was alive after being held and they put him in a recovery position. His leg was moving, his chest appeared to be moving up and down in the video. And then in that same video, you can see people that were on the subway walking by, getting off of the subway, thanking the veteran and saying thanks for doing that. Um, and they were walking by thanking Jordan Neely for what he had done and what multiple other people did too. That's the whole thing here too as well. It wasn't just Daniel Penny who was there holding him down. It was multiple people of multiple races actually. So this whole race war that AOC is trying to push out there, Democrats media, and calling it a lynching, it's just not. It's not accurate. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz, and this is such a tragic story, but I need to bring this to you because here's the thing. The Washington Post, they've come out and they've said things like, oh, it's a white supremacist who shot up everybody in Dallas at that mall, and we don't know the ideology of the mass shooter right now. We do know that he had some sort of patch, and they're suggesting that this patch was a neo-Nazi symbol and that it was a white supremacist symbol. However, there are multiple meanings for this patch, and there was an acronym. It was RWDS, and they're saying that was right-wing death squad or something like that. And there's all kinds of different acronyms out there. It could just be the brand of his gear that he had on. And this guy, he's a Hispanic guy, and that happened in Dallas over the weekend, where he shot people, killed people, 8 people, and now we're hearing updates on this story, also in Texas, where this guy in Brownsville, Texas, killed 8 people. There were 7 people when I woke up this morning, and it appears that there is now 8 people who tragically lost their life in Brownsville, Texas. These aren't just numbers, folks. And I think that we get caught up in the numbers and we don't really realize that that's 8 lives. That's 8 human lives. Life is sacred and life has meaning. And this guy took his car, it was an SUV looking thing, it was a Range Rover, and he plowed it into a crowd of people at a bus stop. People were waiting at a bus stop. And he injured 11 other people. The car was all damaged because of what he had done. So I'm going to bring you this story. And this was right outside of a migrant shelter. And there were a lot of immigrant men from Venezuela who were seeking services at around 8:30 a.m. at a Catholic charity in this border town called Brownsville. So the people who were injured were immigrants. I have no idea the immigration status of the killer, but I'll be back with what I do have next on the Morning Buzz. Oh boy. Guys, Title 42, it's going to be gone come Thursday. And what are we to be expecting when Title 42 is lifted? Well, you guys need to know this. We're looking at approximately 700,000 illegal immigrants waiting at the Mexico border to immediately attempt to cross the southern border at the moment. The policy is no longer in use. So, Title 42, a little background here for you on the morning buzz. Donald Trump, he enacted it during COVID-19. It was the pandemic and an effort to slow the spread of the coronavirus. And one thing that I don't think a whole lot of people understand is that this Title 42 was enacted 8 decades ago as part of the Public Service Act of 1944. So this wasn't anything new it wasn't anything that Donald Trump came up with on his own. This was something that was already existing, and then he brought it back out to try to control the COVID-19 pandemic. And Title 42, I think that it should just always be there, because really what it does, it just stops people at the border, and it tries to see if they are a potential health risk, if they've visited countries where there's communicable diseases, and if those diseases were present in those countries. I don't know why we would be getting rid of it. I don't know why it's just not existing all of the time in permanent. If I was a lawmaker, I'd be like, yeah, let's just keep Title 42. I mean, yeah, we should probably check to see if people have diseases and not allow them into the country if they have communicable diseases that could harm entire swaths of populations. Just my 2 cents on the matter, right? But this means that we could see 700,000 to 1 million, the lifting of this on Thursday, illegal immigrants flooding the border, because they are waiting for that to drop. So Joe Biden has ordered 1,500 active duty troops to the area in the coming days, to be joined by 2,500 National Guardsmen that are already there. So we have active duty troops going there. We have 2,500 guardsmen. However, Border Patrol agents actually are saying now that the Biden administration has given little guidance to how to handle the influx. So, yeah, you can send all the troops there if you want, but if they aren't giving orders on what to do with them, doesn't matter. Does it matter that you're sending like 4,000 people down there to try to control if you don't tell them how to control it? So I've got some clips from Alejandro Mayorkas Dorcas on CBS Face the Nation. Total dork. Honestly, that's what I think when I hear Alejandro Mayorkas talk about the border. I just say, God, that guy's a dweeb. He's such a dweeb. And that's all I've really got to say about him. But he's trying to describe what he's doing. Actually, let me rephrase what he hasn't done to address the crisis on Face the Nation. So I've got that clip here coming up in just a little bit. But first, I want to bring Jerry Vogler on for Veterans Corner. So every Monday morning at about 8 o'clock, we have Jerry Vogler from the McLean County VA talk about the benefits out there for you if you're a veteran, and about events in the community that benefit veterans and that remember veterans. So Memorial Day is just around the corner. And Jerry, wanted to have you on to talk about some things happening on Memorial Day.
Glad to be here. Of course, on Memorial Day, there will be the traditional parade that will step off at front and center at about 9 o'clock in the morning on Memorial Day. Go down and out on Wood Street out to Miller Park, and there'll be a nice ceremony there with taps and a rifle salute. Immediately after that, the Honor Guard will be over at Evergreen Cemetery for what is known as a modified communal military rite. And it's for those families whose loved ones that were veterans did not participate in military rites at the time of their original funeral. That ceremony will begin at noon on the 29th at the mausoleum just inside the front gate at Evergreen Cemetery. There will be a musical salute to the branches, a rifle salute, taps, a bagpiper, and with weather permitting, a flyover will be featured at that ceremony, as well as the presentation of the military casket flags and that sort of thing back to the families as if the ceremony was actual military rites. Butch Exton is the one to contact at 309-825-2703 no later than May 20th. In order to register to become a part of that ceremony, you'll need to provide the casket flag and the obituary for that veteran so we can personalize it at that event. The other event that's coming up here on May 23rd, that's a Tuesday, from 2 to 8 p.m. It'll be out at the Interstate Center, and it's called the Central Illinois Veterans-Warriors, that's the organization, Veterans Fair. And what this fair will do is it'll bring more than 24 different vendors and resources to the Interstate Center. It's open to veterans and the public. These vendors will provide information about resources available to veterans and benefits and that sort of thing. It is a fundraiser for the Central Illinois Veterans Warriors organization in that they provide a variety of activities and programs for veterans in our community to encourage those veterans to be active and help reduce the issues caused by post-traumatic stress, depression, and anxiety. And as I said, the public is welcome, and let's go out there and get veterans involved and see the resources that are available for them.
Wonderful. And folks, we will be posting this on our website, Memorial Day. We're actually going to be in the parade, our sister station. I'm super excited to be there and actually in the parade walking on Memorial Day. There is going to be a parade. And then on May 29th at noon, there is that special service at Evergreen Cemetery, folks. And then on Tuesday, May 23rd from 2 to 8, there's the Central Illinois Veterans Warriors. They're hosting that Veterans Fair at the Interstate Center. We're going to have all that information for you on our website. Jerry, thanks so much for joining me here on Veterans Corner Morning Buzz.
All righty. Have a great day, Kat.
Bye-bye. That's Jerry Vogler. And real quick, folks, before we wrap up the Veterans Corner, here's a quote from Jerry he shared with me. Memorial Day 2023 refocuses our attention to our fallen heroes from all of the wars for a few days. And we have a sacred obligation to honor veterans, not just on Memorial Day and Veterans Day, but every day, because the sacrifices of those who served are the last defense against the loss of freedom. So here's a quote from John F. Kennedy. Word to the nation: guard zealously your right to serve in the armed forces, for without them, there will be no other rights to guard. So that's from John F. Kennedy. And joining me in studio, I'm very excited, Heidi from Beacon Training Group. Beacon Training Group, not bacon. Good morning. Got eggs and bacon on the mind. But Heidi is joining me here in studio, and she's from the Beacon Training Group. First, I just want to ask you, how you got involved with Beacon Training Group, who you are, and you used to teach, correct?
Yes.
So
I started teaching 23 years ago. I hate saying that number.
23 years ago.
Yep.
Oh, she doesn't look like she started teaching 23 years ago. But Heidi, I want to talk about Beacon Training Group and your role with Beacon Training Group and how your experience as a teacher helps and what exactly Beacon Training Group does.
Okay, well, 6 years ago, I was lucky enough to be trained in EBRS, Escape, Barricade, Resist, Survive, by Beacon Training Group. It's an active threat response training. So after that training, I was so affected and empowered by it that I contacted them and said, I would love to be involved in this some way. I would love to help you out with this and give you kind of a teacher's perspective and kind of help evolve the training to be a little bit more teacher friendly and make sense in schools. So myself and one other staff member that I was trained with, we've been working with them ever since, kind of evolving that training into something that is really awesome for schools. Mm-hmm. So, and I love that we started the hour with the vets because Beacon is a veteran-owned business. So the 4 owners are all veteran Marines, and yes, much respect goes out to them. So
yeah. Well, you guys even have a Warrior Ruck fundraiser happening in Frankfort, Illinois. Folks, Heidi drove all the way up here to meet me, and I'm so excited to meet her from Frankfort. So what's going on with the Warrior Ruck?
So it is a yearly ruck walk, 20 miles, that they put on kind of to raise awareness and to raise funds for veteran suicide prevention. We like to also stress that it doesn't have to just be a veteran, but anyone who seems to be struggling, anyone who is a warrior in your own life, you can walk in honor of them. But we are partnered with Real Warriors Foundation, which is a group that takes veterans on deep sea fishing excursions and kind of, the camaraderie and, veterans who need that trip and who need that camaraderie with people who are going through the same things they are. And so if our goal is to raise 30,000, we're getting awfully close to that. And if we get to that point, we can sponsor our own excursion and send local vets on a Real Warriors trip.
Really cool. So where do we find out more on that?
You can find that on Facebook, Warrior Ruck. We have links to it from our Beacon Training Group page. You can go to beacontraininggroup.com and find out about it on there. We kind of have it, but Facebook is probably the best. Go to Beacon Training Group Facebook page and see all of our posts about it on there.
Wonderful. Well, I wanted Heidi also to come in today, and I can't believe, I woke up this morning and I knew Heidi was coming in, and I was like, well, we have a lot to talk about. I hope that she's seen what has happened over the weekend. I want to start with the Dallas shooting. So this was a Dallas mall shooting, and the suspect has been identified as Marcio Garcia. I don't even really like saying the names of these people because I don't want to glorify the shooter in any kind of way. But he killed 8 people and left several people injured in this mass shooting, and it happened in a mall. And you're right in that we were kind of talking about this through the break. He didn't even enter the mall. Mm-hmm. He just killed those 8 people just right outside, and he didn't even wind up entering the mall. So I want to talk about when we're out and about. So say we're at a mall, say we're at a grocery store, a movie theater. Does Beacon Training Group help people like me, somebody who, I don't have to worry about, well, I do. I shouldn't have to, I do have to worry about maybe possibly somebody coming in here, there being a mass shooting situation. We don't have a whole lot of employees here, but, when I'm out and about, that's where I feel most threatened, is because there's so many people here. It's kind of locked up, and I feel kind of secure in that, I'm carrying right and right that's there's just, I feel more secure here than I would out and about. Right. What does Beacon Training Group offer as far as training for just everyday people?
Well, pretty much anything. EBRS is our civilian training program. So that's Escape, Barricade, Resist, Survive. It is a training that focuses on a winning mindset, kind of preparing you, giving you arms. We arm civilians, teachers, business people with skills and knowledge for these kinds of situations. So it's an active threat response. We don't deal with the whys or the hows, or we just know this is happening. So we give people skills and the right mindset to handle them if they are confronted with this sort of thing. So whether it's a school, a business, civilian, you can be trained in EBRS and take those skills into the world around you. Because like we saw over the weekend, what did we say? There were 3 or 4 events just this weekend. Mm-hmm. These things, it's the world we live in. Mm-hmm. We don't like it. And like I said, we don't get into the whys. We give people skills to respond to that. Right. So on top of the response to the active threat, you also get trained in Stop the Bleed, which is the survive portion of our training. So let's say in the case of the SUV that at the bus stop.
Mm-hmm. In Allen, Texas. Or in Brownsville.
Yes.
Brownsville, Texas.
Yes.
Allen was the mall shooting. This is Brownsville, where there was this SUV and it crashed into a lot of people and killed 8. Now, there was somebody who was taken to the hospital, because I just saw this story. 7 were killed, and it just updated to where there's 8 killed now. So that means there were life-threatening injuries, and stopping the bleed here might have been something that could have prevented a loss of life.
Right, and it doesn't even have to be in some kind of mass casualty. It can be at a playground, and some kind of freak playground accident where you break a leg and sever an artery. It gives you these. It's almost like learning CPR, a Heimlich maneuver. Can also learn Stop the Bleed, to be able to tourniquet and wound pack and give people life-saving treatment, to buy them minutes to get to the hospital, or until first responders get there.
we've got to take a quick break, but I do want to continue this conversation because, I mean, we're just seeing so much come out over the weekend, so much violence. There was even a hiker. She was a young woman and she was stabbed to death. And, I mean, she was stabbed several times, but I'm curious about tourniqueting and was yourself. Like if you were in a situation by yourself where somebody stabs you and you managed to get away, she did manage to get away and to run away from her attacker. Unfortunately, she bled out and she collapsed. Now, I'm curious on how that would look to yourself, and I'm going to have Heidi on, and hopefully she describes what that would look like. Here on the Morning Buzz next, this is Cities 92.9. You can text in your questions. If you've got questions for Heidi here from Beacon Training Group, we're going to have her all throughout the 8 o'clock hour talking about these violent stories that came out over the weekend. I mean, it's just a bloodbath out there. I mean, I wish I had better news for you on a Monday, but I really don't. There's a lot of things that happened over the weekend, and you got to know about it, and you've got to know that Beacon Training Group is there to help you. And you need to call them today or sit down with your boss, talk with them and say, hey, what is the response? What if this were to happen? What do I do? So we'll be back next. Do you think you could reach into somebody's bullet wound and cut off the artery to get it to stop bleeding? That's called wound packing, at least sort of, kind of. I'm not an expert like Heidi Drennan over here. She is from Beacon Training Group. We are live in studio. If you want to see us both, if you want to ask questions, comment on the live. It's a Facebook Live, YouTube Live. We're there, and we will be taking your questions here. Now, one question was, Kat, you talked about bleeding out. Does Beacon Training Group talk or teach about how to treat injuries? So I want to talk about the difference between wound packing and tourniquet, where you stop the blood flow, I guess, right? And Heidi's going to go through the differences here and what Beacon Training Group does. And folks, this is your call to action right now. You need to talk with your boss. You need to talk with your school administrators. I'm looking at District 87, Unit 5, these big districts. There was a case where we had a gun recently in District 87 where a student brought it in. Every day in the news, you hear it. Tom Davis tells you about a 15, 17-year-old getting arrested for shootings and for firing a weapon unlawfully. So this is your this is your sign. This is you. This is your sign to talk to your boss today, or to talk to your school administrators today and ask them about Beacon Training Group. You need to call your school administrators and say, I would prefer that Beacon Training Group be our training provider. And here's the reason why. Heidi's going to tell us a little bit about just a small sliver of what they teach, which is wound management and how to get to stopping the bleed.
Yes. So you mentioned schools and businesses. We also have EBRS, civilian EBRS, and civilian ITC courses coming up. So check us out on our webpage, Facebook page. Look for those announcements coming up, because even if your business or school doesn't do it, you can join one of these classes and learn it for yourself. So Stop the Bleed. It's a national movement, sort of like I said, CPR or Heimlich maneuver. It's a way to save lives in a lot of these situations. In these mass shootings, when you go all the way back to, the Las Vegas concert, if you look at a lot of the school shootings, whenever, a lot of people bleed out after the event happens. So a large portion of our training is how to handle those injuries and buy people those crucial minutes until first responders can get there, until more medical help can get there. Mm-hmm. So two of those ways are wound packing and applying tourniquets. So you're assuming that with a gunshot wound or whatever kind of injury, stab wound, whatever, that you have severed an artery. Mm-hmm. The idea behind, and this is a little graphic, a little hard to hear, but
it's okay, guys. This is a PG-13 show. I think I've said that. I've said worse.
So the idea is the same behind both. It's just the area that the wound happens to be. In both situations, you need to stop that bleeding, stop the bleed campaign, which is by pinching off the artery at the source, stopping that bleed. So if it's in a junctional area, and if, for those of you on Facebook Live, I'm kind of indicating, so the groin area, armpits, shoulders, yeah, the sides of the neck, that would be a wound packing. You can't really tourniquet those areas. So that is getting inside of that wound and pinching off the artery with your fingers, and then packing it to hold it. A tourniquet would be anywhere on the limbs where you have an arterial bleed, and you apply the tourniquet high up on your limb, as tight as you can, whether you have a manufactured tourniquet or we teach you how to build improvised tourniquets if you don't have one available. And that it's the same idea. But in the tourniquet case, you are putting enough pressure around the limb to squeeze off that artery. So it's the same idea. In both instances, you are pinching off the artery to stop the bleeding.
And we were talking a little bit about, and I want to get to this question too, how do teachers react to this training? Are they scared?
In the morning, yes. Everyone's a little hesitant. I mean, you have a little bit of everything. There's the hesitant teachers and there's the gung-ho teachers.
Yeah.
By the end of the day, we have people high-fiving and thanking everyone and being proud of the staff that they just trained with and feeling empowered. It is, and we hear that word over and over and over. It is an empowering training because it gives you a fighting chance in
Yeah.
these situations.
Yeah, and I believe that. And, just a little personal side note, right? This is the Morning Buzz. Welcome. This is Kat Peterson over there. You're hearing the lovely voice of Heidi Drennan. She's from the Beacon Training Group. She actually was a teacher, as a licensed to teach, is no longer teaching anymore. And she's training teachers on how to do this. Little side story about me. As soon as I can't wait. I really want to look into taking this class myself and doing it personally, like when I'm out and about, and maybe I'll even start carrying around a tourniquet. I don't know, a tourniquet where I can cut off the artery here if I am wounded fatally, because I do a lot of hiking and things like that. And recently, this girl in Arizona, she was hiking and she was stabbed multiple times by a convict, a convicted felon, and she wound up dying. But I'm wondering, and she was stabbed multiple times. I don't know, but having that training to stop the bleed, even on yourself, might be helpful. But me personally, when I started shooting, when I learned how to shoot, there was an empowerment, and it's a confidence. And I think that people can relate to this if they realize, if they are trained in some sort of self-defense, and that is self-defense, right? Gun. That's just what they're there for, right? You get an empowerment from that.
Yes, and we don't train to use a weapon, but we have a weapons familiarization portion of our class because a lot of people have never seen one up close and personal. So we focus a lot on controlling the weapon, not using it, but controlling it. If you are up close and personal, if you are faced with this person, you walk around a corner and here you are with a gun.
Yeah.
So, our training starts with the escape, barricading, but then there's also the resist. Like I said, you turn the corner and here's a gunman, and how weapons work and how malfunctions can happen, and recognizing the type of weapons and the type of malfunctions. And it's that whole mindset of using what you know and giving you options in this sort of response. So it's not the lockdown only, I'm going to sit and wait for help. It's giving you options to act, because if you're in this situation, you are the first responder. I don't care how quickly and amazingly the police respond.
Yeah.
There are crucial minutes that you are there before they are.
Yeah.
So
and
that's where our training really is beneficial.
With even the Nashville shooting just recently, how fast that time was, where those Nashville police officers,
It was an amazing response.
3-4 minutes,
Right.
but within that 3 and 4 minutes, 6 kids, or 6 people, 3 kids died.
Right.
So there are crucial minutes there. 3 minutes. I mean, within the time of that shooter coming into the school, to the time that they got there, 4 minutes. I mean, there is
Right.
a lot that can happen.
Well, national response time is 5 to 7 minutes, but that's after they get the call. So there's probably seconds, minutes before they even get the call, and then it's 5 to 7 minutes after that. Most of these events are over by that point. So they're, even if a police officer is outside of the building when the call comes in, there are crucial seconds that you can make a difference with the right training.
We're going to be back. I got to take a break, but one question that I've got is, what about securing the doors of the schools, securing the doors of your business, at your office, where you work? Is there something that Beacon Training Group does when it comes to that stuff, securing the flaws and the barrier, and what do they do? So we're going to be back with the answer to that question with Heidi Drennan from Beacon Training Group next on the Morning Buzz. Good morning, folks. This is the Morning Buzz, and it was a tragic weekend. There's been stories about this man. He drove into people, into a crowd near a migrant facility. He killed 8 people, injured 11. According to police, the majority of the victims killed and injured are immigrant men from Venezuela. So that happened in this little border town. It's called Brownsville, Texas. And then there was another story over the weekend about a Dallas mass shooting where the suspect has been identified by police. Marcio Garcia, he's 33. He allegedly killed 8 people and left several people injured in this mass shooting that happened actually outside of the mall. He didn't even enter the mall, and he managed to kill 8 people there at the scene. So tragic news coming out. There was another news story I talked about. A woman, she was very young. Her name's Lauren, out of Arizona. She was hiking on some trails, and she was by herself. There was a convicted felon who was out. I don't know the details about how he got out, but he got out, folks. And he stabbed her multiple times, and she managed to actually subdue the attacker with 15 stab wounds. 15. She subdued him. She ran away and managed to flee her attacker, but collapsed and then later died. Tragic weekend. I mean, just a terrible, but there is hope. And your hope is Beacon Training Group. So Beacon Training Group, Heidi Drennan, she's joining me here. And actually, we were talking through the break here. Of course, these things happen, and you hear it in the news, and you hope to God it doesn't happen to you. The likelihood of it happening to you is increasing more and more as each day goes by. But there are also instances where you could use your Beacon Training Group training that you receive in a situation that's not so violent or so scary. So you were telling me about a pickleball situation.
Yes. So we trained at Beecher schools, Beecher, Illinois. And one of the teachers who was trained by us was playing pickleball. And it was a garage type setting, and had an injury on whether it was the track of the garage, something that he fell against and had an injury. I believe it was on his arm, and was in the bathroom rinsing it off, and it was bleeding. It was a decent wound, and the teacher that was playing with him applied a tourniquet and stopped stopped the bleeding on his wound until he was able to go and get further medical care. But so pickleball.
Pickleball. I mean, there's
Yes.
accidents, and actually, I don't think a lot of people know this, and people will say this all of the time, that guns are the leading cause of death in children. And I do just kind of want to debunk that here real quick, folks, because you're going to hear this narrative more and more today that guns are there are all kinds of things that kill people. We just talked about a story about an SUV mowing down people. There's violence kills people. But what I want to talk about is the kids, right? They'll say that guns kill more kids than anything else. And yes, guns kill children in mass school mass shooting situations. However, accidents are actually the main leading cause. So if you break the numbers down, the Kaiser Family Foundation, they had this study out there, and they included 18 to 19-year-olds in this study, and those aren't actually accurate numbers, right? If you want to talk about kids, we're talking 12 years old, right? And the leading cause of death in children with up to 12 years old, that's when the kid menu, right? You can't order off the kid menu anymore if you're not 12. So that's the way it kind of goes. That's how I identify a child, right? The leading cause of death in kids is actually accidents, whether that be car accidents or a freak accident like that. So that is very crucial that you know how to respond to children who hurt themselves on the playground.
Right.
And I do want to also talk about the malfunctioning of weapons. So you guys train teachers and all kinds of people on how to get the weapon and to get it to malfunction. So explain to me.
We don't necessarily train how to make it malfunction. We just we consider that a bonus. We talk about controlling the weapon. So again, we always say this is not the Medal of Honor run across the hallway to take out the shooter. This is you turn the corner and you are faced with an active shooter and a weapon. So we give them experience with different types of weapons, shotguns, handguns, AR-15 style guns, so that they can recognize them and know how they work. So it's the control of the weapon, and taking that control away from the shooter. The malfunction, we show them what it looks like, how it can happen, as an opportunity, because we want them to recognize that malfunction so that they can and realize that is an opportunity, then that he can't shoot that weapon anymore, and you can make decisions based on what's happening at that point. So and that's, teachers always ask that, how do I make this malfunction happen? Well, we don't want you to focus on that, because there could be if you're in this situation, there is a live weapon in front of you. So we focus on controlling it, but that we want you to recognize the opportunity that a malfunction could give you.
Yeah. So if the shooter is using the gun, and all of a sudden the gun starts to look as if it's malfunctioning, that's your opportunity to go in and get that gun away. Yeah, well, that happens to me on the range all of the time.
Which I don't think a lot of people realize, that malfunctions happen pretty easily.
Yeah,
and it's an opportunity.
I was just shooting, and it's just, you're dealing with very mentally ill people a lot of the time in these cases, or people that are just completely deranged, right? So
or untrained, even just untrained.
Yeah.
So if a malfunction happens, that's time that you can be acting, either whether you're escaping or attacking the weapon or whatever.
Yeah, so there's this very embarrassing video of me. I'm using a weapon or using a Glock, and I wasn't stiff armed, right? So you're supposed to not stiff armed, but you're supposed to be pretty firm with it. And my hands were kind of loosey goosey, holding the gun, and the gun jammed because of how loose I was holding the weapon. So if you don't have a good grip on your weapon and you fire and it's loose, then your gun can jam. So that would have been an opportunity to gauge me if I was some sort of shooter, right? And to take my weapon away, because at that point the gun was jammed, it was useless. So beacon training, we have to take a quick break, but we're going to be back, and we're going to be talking with Heidi Drennan from Beacon Training Group, and we're going to wrap up the show, folks. Lots of news coming out now about the Title 42 Thursday. You should be expecting a mass surge at the border. We're looking at 700,000 to 1 million illegal aliens flooding that border on Thursday. I'm going to be back, and we're going to run through today's headlines. Hey, thanks so much for joining the live. call your boss today or your administrators, or check out the Beacon Training Group website. With me in studio, beautiful Heidi right over there. Drennan, she used to be a teacher. Now she's training teachers on how to respond to mass shooting situations, or just situations where you find yourself in trouble before the first responders get there. So, Heidi, tell me a little bit about the security. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about the security risks and assessment that Beacon Training Group does.
Yeah, so Beacon will come out and do a security assessment of your school business, where they do a complete walkthrough and look through your procedures, physical building and procedures, and find weak spots and places that you can improve. So I guess that's in a one sentence description of what a security assessment is. They'll kind of look at what you're doing and like I said, the physical part of your building and find where you could improve.
And would you make would a Beacon Training Group individual make a call and say, hey, this window here is actually not bulletproof and it should be, and here's the reason why? Is that why is that how that would kind of work out?
Most of the security assessments have been on schools that we have done, because that usually it's just something schools want. There's laws saying you have to have these, you have to have certain things in place. So that's where most of our security assessments are done. But yes, absolutely, they will come out to any building and take a look at it and give you.
And how many schools are Beacon currently in right now in the state of Illinois? Do you know that number?
Ooh, that's a good question. So, Beacon guys listening, do we have that number? Yeah, we've done individual schools. It's a hard number to say because we've done individual schools, but we've also done full school districts that are, 12 to 15 schools in that entire district.
Yeah.
So mainly right now we've been in the northern part of the state, Chicagoland area and the suburbs, but we are spreading further and further south.
Yes.
Which is why I'm in Normal today.
Yes. So she's coming in all the way from Frankfurt, and we've been talking about how to respond in a situation, or even if you are by yourself and you are hiking in the woods where you could possibly give yourself some sort of self tourniquet. They do that kind of training. So we're going to come back and we're going to wrap up the show, folks, but be sure to follow the page, and share this video out with your friends, and call your boss today. Call your school administrators and ask them, hey, what's the plan in place, and can you use Beacon training instead? Because this is the type of training where it's effective. I'm just going to say it's effective training, and you don't want to be a sitting duck when tragedy strikes.
Yep.
Woo! Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Kind of storming off and off today, on and off today. It's a little stormy weather, and bearing the elements is Miss Heidi over here. She's with me in studio. You can see us live on Facebook, YouTube, all of the social medias. And she's been talking with me a lot about Beacon Training Group here on the Morning Buzz. Now, before we took the break, I kind of talked about the security risks assessments and the different assessments that Beacon Training Group will do on your building that you're currently in, or your kids are currently in. Most likely you drop the kids off at school, you're listening on your way back home, and you've dropped them off at a place that might not have Beacon Training Group come out to do this risk assessment, and there might be some flaws in the building. So tell me about this risk assessment.
So we call it a security assessment. It is a complete walkthrough of your procedures, your emergency procedures, and the physical building to find weaknesses, possible weaknesses, and give recommendations. So we always kind of joke around, if you're a teacher, you understand working in a school building. You know, Uvalde, the broken lock on the door. You know, we've all heard about these faulty doors, faulty locks. You know, priorities are always a little interesting in a school building. And if you say, hey, this is broken, it might not always get fixed very quickly. So A security assessment is a great way to have it all in one place. Everything is listed out and prioritized with how you should, make improvements in your building.
Well, we have got to go. That's the end of the show. But Heidi, how do we find out more about Beacon Training Group?
Check us out on Facebook, Instagram. BeaconTrainingGroup.com is our website. We post a lot of stuff, though, on social media. If you want to send us an email, you can send it to info@beacontraininggroup.org, and we will answer any individual questions. But, yeah, check us out and tell your employers and teachers and school boards, whatever, that Beacon is the way to go.
Yeah, Beacon is the way to go. Guys, that's going to do it for us here on the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll be back at it tomorrow morning. Stay safe out there. It's stormy, and stay safe out there. And remember, there are options for you to stay safe. It's Beacon Training Group. I'll be back tomorrow morning starting at 6 a.m. Glenn Beck is up after me.